And we're live. It is Monday, the 24th of November. It is 8 o'clock a.m., year of our Lord 2025. And I had an energizing weekend. I don't know about you,
So did
but
I.
yes, Holly went to her second dressed as a frog protest.
No, Miss Piggy this time.
Oh, sorry. You sent pictures of people dressed as frogs.
Yes.
Um, and we are definitely ramping up in the costume protest department. By the way, guys, if you have not dressed up to go to a protest in a costume, that is turns out to be one of the joys of life that it's just super fun. You know, because like usually when I wear a costume, it's because like it's Halloween or something, and then I'm in a costume, but like what do? You say trick or treat. I'm not trick or treating anymore. You know, or it's Purim, and then I hate loud noises, so the sound of groggers just drives me batshit. And by the way, I don't set foot in synagogues anymore. So it's just complicated costumes. But going to a protest in a costume, that is super fun. And which is a great way to introduce our guest, which I'm going to do in a moment. Saturday evening, we had a little special military operation at the Russian embassy. I gotta say, the problems I anticipated, none of them materialized. For example,
But a new
the
problem did.
yes, for example, the projector had plenty of power to
Plenty.
put an image of Death Head Putin on the Russian embassy. We antagonized the Z and V spotlights. We drew them out. Um, and it all that was fabulous. Police action, none. Secret Service showed up. They told one of our people, the estimable Arkady Dolina, unfortunately, you are not violating any law, which I loved. This was one of the grouchiest Secret Service officers I've ever dealt with. I went up to thank him after the protest, and he
I also
growled.
told him he was grumpy.
He was really grumpy. But the Secret Service maintains its position that light projections on embassies are First Amendment protected activity. That was in some doubt in my mind, honestly, because their position about chalk on the sidewalk has changed and changed sort of without explanation in a fashion I can only attribute to the political climate, although I'm open to other explanations. Um, However, their position about projections has not changed, and I want to say that, we live in a society in which a lot of things are in question these days, and we are uh, all trying to figure out how badly eroded the rule of law is, not to mention the quality of amphibian ecosystems. And it is a great thing when you stand in front of the embassy of an authoritarian menace that our government is currently allied with, trying to force a democratic country under extreme duress into, frankly, genocidal concessions. And you project something highly offensive to that government on their door, on their front wall, and your own law enforcement stands and watches. And because and even though they're grumpy about it because they would love to arrest you, because you're actually causing a lot of extra work for them, but they don't, because that is what the law says. And I just want to remind everybody that yes, we are living in Trump's Washington right now. There is still a lot you can do, including up to and including buying a projector and projecting images of the Putin death head on the Russian embassy with the Secret Service standing around, grudgingly acknowledging that you are not violating any law. And so I just want to say, whether it is about Russia, Ukraine, whether it is about Kash Patel, and I will have more to say on that subject in coming days, or whether it is about healthy frog ecosystems, go out there and use the power that you have. And, go out there and, you know, don't let them tell you that you can't do shit anymore because you can do shit. And sometimes that means like trying to figure out if you could still do shit. And I was pretty confident that I wouldn't be arrested for projecting because the Secret Service has always taken this position that, but I was not confident that they wouldn't tell me in some muddled form in which they did with chalk, the rules have changed, man, you got to stop. And they didn't. And I want to give them credit for that. And I want to give everybody who turned out credit for turning out in the face of some degree of uncertainty about what the rules are. Uh, I have to fix a technical problem that we have with the projector. We're going to be doing a lot more of this on domestic targets,
Ooh,
on
you should do a frog on the Russian embassy for no reason.
there a frog may happen, but it will not be on the Russian embassy. I
Hmm.
try to keep the Russian embassy pure
Ukraine.
for Ukraine related stuff. But yeah, I am totally up for putting a frog, either a Portland frog or just a tree frog, up somewhere appropriate. All of which brings me to our guest, Dr.
Oh, well, you
Kerry.
have to do the
Oh,
intro.
yes. I'm sorry. All of which is a 7 minute long-winded way of saying that the sun is shining, the birds are chirping. It's going to be a great fucking day. It's going to be a great frogging day. And
Dog Shirt TV, a forking revolution in morning television.
you are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is a forking revolution in morning television. And one of the revolutionary features, of which there are many, is that sometimes Holly and I inadvertently offend somebody who was just out there protesting for healthy amphibian ecosystems, which we absolutely support. And I grew up being a tree frog guy. I always had frogs and other pet lizards and stuff that you're not supposed to keep anymore. And I understand that that's a bad thing to do, but it caused a lifelong love of amphibians that I hope I have made up for the error of my ways in keeping them as a child in the years since. And we accidentally offend this person by making jokes about the fact that we went to a Portland frog protest and ended up talking about pesticides, which was not really why we went there, but we were joking. But then the gentleman in question expresses his irritation, and we say, come on, don't be ridiculous. Just come on the show and let's talk about protests and frogs. And that's one of the revolutionary features, and another one of the revolutionary features, and I just want to say this with great love for my co-host, is that Holly Berkley Fletcher does not mind being ridiculed and therefore has shown up in a frog costume for this
And a
show.
Miss Piggy
Uh,
shirt. So can I just jump in? Sorry,
yeah,
doctor. Is it Dr. Krieger?
Dr.
Sure.
Kerry Kriger of Save the
Yeah, sorry,
Frogs.
Dr.
Hi.
Krieger. We have logorrhea here, and we tend to go on and make our guests sit here. So just
It's
very
all
quickly
right.
before you hand it over to Dr. Krieger, I went to the protest on Saturday with a Miss Piggy theme. I have my Miss Piggy "Don't Mess with Moi," which I didn't get that in time, but I have it now, and now it's my favorite thing. And then I made this sign.
wait, we're gonna make you big here so that we can.
This little piggy gonna you guys of a certain age, the young people don't remember hi ya. Remember how she
Yeah, Miss
hi
Miss
ya?
Piggy was
You
awesome.
she is terrifying and talk about dangers to frogs.
Drop it.
I think Miss Piggy, I think it's a domestic abuse situation with Kermit, and I do worry for Kermit. But anyway, I went with a piggy theme because Donald Trump, called a reporter piggy, pot calling this it wasn't even a kettle he called black. Like he is the pot and the kettle and the pig. And so there were some piggy themes, but there were also a lot of frogs there. And so I'm wearing my frog costume in honor of Dr. Kriger. And I'll shut
Thank
up now.
you.
Excellent. Well, all of which is a long-winded way of saying that we are not allowed to have fun anymore, but we are allowed to have Kerry Kriger join the show. He is the founder of Save the Frogs. He was the creator of the Million Frog March, which I think was a brilliant idea. And I think we gotta maybe figure out a smoother integration of the frog theme and the democracy theme. But I love the concept, and welcome to the show.
Hi, it's great to be here. Nice to meet you, Ben and Holly. Thanks for coming out to the Million Frog March. And I'll just start out by saying, hey, it wasn't a Portland frog protest. It was a DC frog protest. I did invite some, well, I mean, I don't know them personally, but I know Operation Inflation, and we spoke. They're based out in Portland. And I did want Seth Todd to be out there. And hey, if he gets this or anyone knows him, he's invited to speak at the next Million Frog March, which will be Saturday, April 25th, 2026 in Washington, D.C. And our page is up, savethefrogs.com/march, with tons of info and a registration form. So I invite everyone to show up there, and hey, we'll bring in our Portland frog themes, mix it with some Washington, D.C. style frog saving, and have a good time and protect democracy and frogs.
If you guys want some help with putting together speakers for the democracy side of this, let us know. We can really help you with that.
Yeah, that would be awesome, because I'm new to this, I'll say, your world of what you talk about every day, or at least, the people in it. I don't have many connections, but now I do with you, so that's cool. And you two are invited if you want to say a few words there.
I will always happy.
Stop us.
All right, good.
All right, so on to serious business. Tell us about Save the Frogs and how you got involved in the admittedly apparently narrow, but in fact vast and canary in the coal mine like aspects of amphibian ecosystems. Why this as opposed to other environmental issues?
Or we should just start a little bit of background on where are you from?
Well, I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
How did you get involved in what is your education? I know you're a doctor, obviously, of frogs, apparently.
Yes, I'm a frog doctor. And can we make this frog shirt TV today?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I think this is frog shirt.
I don't want to be out of
today.
uniform. Okay, good.
I'm not sure really how you do that, but yeah.
You do it with a wand.
You do? Okay, good. It's done.
It's
all right,
done.
well, yes, I am Save the Frogs founder, Dr. Kerry Kriger, and I am a D.C. area native. I grew up in Northern Virginia, and I grew up near the Manassas National Battlefield Park, which has lots of land and streams, and the Bull Run River. And when I was young, my parents built a pond on the property, and I ended up hanging out down there a whole lot. Not necessarily for frogs, but I'd see them popping around, and when I would sleep at night with the windows open in the summer, I would hear the frogs calling. And I think that subconsciously or it went into my brain. And later on, when I got interested in environmental protection, I thought about frogs. But I got into environment in general because I never had a frog fascination. I never had frogs as pets. I got into the environment because I spent a lot of time traveling around the U.S. and around the world, camping out and hiking and spending time in nature, and unfortunately seeing a lot of environmental destruction. So I actually went to University of Virginia, graduated with a BS in mechanical engineering, but mechanical engineering kind of didn't seem to be, it wasn't doing it for me. And right near the end of my university time, I realized for the first time, because nobody had ever come to my school talking about frogs or protecting the environment, it hit me, hey, there's actually careers in environmental science and other forms of environmental protection. So I ended up I volunteered in Hawaii, helping out some PhD researchers studying endangered birds, and realized that I did want to go into that field. So eventually I returned to Australia, where I had spent a lot of time. And my first time in Australia, I found myself in Yongala National Park hiking up a beautiful river with waterfalls, and I associated that place with frogs. So when I found out that frogs were rapidly disappearing, I thought, hey, I should go to Australia for 4 years and study frogs. So that's what I did. I got my PhD in environmental science at Griffith University in Gold Coast, which is in southeast Queensland, a great place for frogs. I published a bunch of scientific papers, and I read a lot of them, and I realized that most of amphibian conservation was restricted to academia, and most of the researchers would write their papers and end it with a short statement: we've outlined the problems and they should get fixed. But I realized there wasn't really anyone, or not many people, implementing those fixes. So when I returned to the USA in early 2008, I founded Save the Frogs as the world's first and only public charity dedicated exclusively to protecting amphibians.
So my impression is that amphibians are a particularly sensitive indicator of any given ecosystem's decline. That, before other species start dying off, you will have uh, uh, decline in amphibians, and you will have also deformations of amphibians. And the question is that right, or is it a particularity of, or is there something canary in the coal mine like about frogs and other amphibians?
Yeah, you are right. Amphibians are considered bioindicators, so they're early warning signs of environmental decay. That's for a few reasons. One, they have permeable skin, so their skin is not like ours. They can absorb the pollutants and pesticides straight through their skin because they want to absorb water and oxygen through their skin. So they're very susceptible to chemicals. They tend to be amphibious, meaning that they have a life in water and on land. So if anything goes wrong in either of those systems, then they're going to have trouble. And also, most frogs cannot simply hop away if their forest gets chopped down or if their wetland gets drained, whereas a bird could fly off potentially to a new place. Amphibians aren't going to do well with any type of habitat destruction.
So are they more sensitive than fish?
Let's see.
If you look at a river and the river's health, the ecosystem of the river is declining, are you going to see that first in frogs before you see it in local fish?
Yeah, I think it would depend on the exact location and the species, but in general, amphibians are the most rapidly disappearing group of vertebrates on the planet. So based on that, they have shown higher sensitivity. It's about 1/3 of all amphibian species are threatened with extinction.
Wow. So, what are your particular sort of action plans that you would like to see changed in policy? And is that I assume this actually goes back before the Trump administration, but is the Trump administration worse on this?
Yeah, so um, as I just mentioned, amphibians are in trouble in the USA and around the world. I started Save the Frogs, not because I had nothing better to do, but because I thought it had to get done, and it was the most important thing to me to get done. And even within environmental protection, I've never veered away from amphibians because amphibians were and have been and probably will continue to be in a lot of trouble. So, the threats to amphibians, let me just read them off for anyone who's not aware. Habitat destruction is number one worldwide. I'm getting a little bit of echo. I don't know if something happened there, but just letting you know.
not sure where that's coming
You
from.
sound good to me.
Okay. All right, good. Okay. Sorry, lost my train of thought. Infectious diseases are the number one problem. It's good now for montane amphibians. So up in the mountains, frogs have been going extinct rapidly due to a chytrid fungus that's being spread around the world due to humans transporting amphibians. Global warming, pollution, pesticides, people eating frogs, people collecting them for use as pets, and invasive species. So all those problems have been around since long before Trump was in politics. But the way that the current administration handles environmental affairs is not good for frogs because they essentially don't care about the environment. They're always going to put corporate interests first and load up their departments with leaders of those departments who, from my experience, don't want those departments to exist. And so that's led to rapid firings of scientists and deregulations and attempts to change Endangered Species Act and Clean Water Act and Clean Air Act, and all those things do not bode well for amphibians. So I'll say that it doubles the amount of work that we have to do in America, and it does also affect, at least from a global warming perspective, amphibians worldwide. Now, as far as what specific policy changes do I want, I'll say, first off, what is Save the Frogs? Our mission is to protect amphibian populations and to promote a society that respects and appreciates nature and wildlife. Our number one goal has always been to educate the public, including politicians, students, teachers, community members, other organizations. So environmental education is always number one, because if people aren't educated and aware that there's a problem, then we're not going to get any of those other things done. I'll say we've gotten local, state, and federal legislation in place. We got the state of California to stop issuing permits for the importation of non-native American bullfrogs. American bullfrogs are native to the eastern half of the U.S. and Canada. They're the largest frog in North America. They have a very large mouth, and they like to eat other frogs. And beginning in the 1890s, 1840s, sorry, I can't remember, the gold miners started to bring in frogs and eat frogs because they ate most of the California red-legged frogs. So anyway, millions of frogs have been imported into California annually, the non-Native American bullfrog. So we got the state to stop that. That took about 15 years of work. So governments work very slow, and you have to be very persistent, especially about environmental problems that are not really on their radar. And I find there's usually some opposition. The opposition is the people who like to eat frogs and have restaurants and the importers. So that was one of our biggest successes. We got the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to ban the importation of 201 salamander species because there's a salamander chytrid fungus that's killing salamanders in Europe. So it causes mass die-offs. And we did not want that entering the USA. So we, along with the Center for Biological Diversity, petitioned the Fish and Wildlife Service, and that was successful. And a scientific paper came out about that a year or two ago, or the results of it, and it, to the best estimate, stopped about 600,000 salamanders from entering the U.S., which, even aside from the fact that that disease has still not been detected in the U.S., is just good, because a lot of those salamanders, they die while being transported, and then people release them into the wild, and they become invasive species potentially and cause other problems.
I wonder on the pesticide front, the whole Robert F. Kennedy MAHA thing, they don't like chemicals. I wonder if there's an opportunity there for you, and maybe, and maybe we shouldn't combine your movement then with the pro-democracy.
I guess so. Maybe I need to contact RFK Jr. if anyone's got a contact. Hey, I hadn't consideed that, but yeah. I don't know if you've heard about Alex Jones
measles, though. You may get rid of, but then maybe they'll get frog measles or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's best to stay away from that. But yeah, I take him to be in the Alex Jones lines of gay frogs, which you may have heard about, or incorrectly. Alex Jones went viral for a rant about gay frogs, which was based in some truth. He didn't get it right. We have a page up on our site. Just type Alex Jones Save the Frogs and you'll get it, clarifying what he was trying to get at, which is this chemical atrazine, which is the most commonly used, second most commonly used herbicide. It's after Roundup. But atrazine is most commonly detected pesticide in U.S. groundwater, rainwater, and tap water. And it,
That people should be avoiding?
I think it's mostly corporate use. I don't think you can walk in, fortunately, whereas you walk into like Home Depot and there's Roundup all over the place. But yeah, atrazine is big corporate use for rice, sugar cane, sorghum, soy, golf courses. And it can turn male frogs into females at 2.5 parts per billion. And it's a known carcinogen. It's been banned in the European Union since 2004. So actually, our original Washington, D.C. protest was on the third annual Save the Frogs Day. That was April 29th, 2011. And we had about 40 protesters and myself in front of the U.S. EPA buildings in D.C. holding up signs like this one saying ban atrazine because atrazine's bad for the frogs. It's bad for humans. The only people that it's really good for are the lobbyists and the companies that are selling billions of dollars of it everywhere. So that's been one of our main federal campaigns. And unfortunately, well, it was good like back then. Even so, we had 40 people there, but it caught the eye of the EPA. They invited me to speak to their pesticide team the following week, which I did. And then I returned to the EPA a year later for public call to public hearing, we'll say, with their scientific advisory panel. And I gave a speech on atrazine. You can find it on our site on the atrazine webpage. But there were 28 other people there speaking, and all of them were pesticide lobbyists, or they were all from the pesticide companies, and none of these other organizations in DC, environmental organizations who do have anti-atrazine campaigns, were there to speak. So that hit me that like we have to take advantage when the government does allow us to speak. And our goal is that we're always allowed to have our freedom of speech, and actually that, we can show up at a government hearing like that, or we can show up at the Lincoln Memorial and speak out for frogs or the environment or whatever it is that we're interested in. We need to get out there and make sure that our voices are heard.
So I'm curious so just for those there was some discussion of this in the chat before, the category of amphibians, which, if I remember right from high school science, is a category defined by being born with gills in aquatic ecosystems and growing legs later and migrating out of the or onto non-aquatic environments. Um, uh,
Shall I define the amphibians? Or
Please,
say who are the amphibians?
and which species groups do they include?
Okay, we've got three main groups. You could call it 5 or 3 because frogs and toads are together. All toads are frogs. Okay, so we've got the frogs.
I thought toads were reptiles.
Toads are not reptiles. Now, toads are it's a family, the true toads, Bufonidae. The true toads are they tend to be kind of rough skin and a warty look to them, and they tend to have shorter legs and kind of walk versus leap. Okay, but some frogs have those characteristics, so it's not perfect. But all toads, which there's a lot of toads in the DC area. If you go out, say in July, wait for a very hot night, a hot, wet night, and go out, you'll find tons of toads around. Fowler's toads, American toads. So, yeah, we've got the frogs and toads. Those are the most well-known amphibians, and they do, most of them have metamorphosis. Most of them begin as eggs in the water and tadpoles, and then they get legs and arms, and their gills turn into lungs, and the tail absorbs back into their body, and they crawl out of the water and tend to live outside of the water for the rest of their, or primarily outside of the water. Okay, but some frogs do not do that. They'll be direct developers. They'll just, especially up in the cloud forests, they'll put their eggs in moist leaf litter, and then a froglet will emerge straight from the egg. So you've got the frogs and the toads. They all have permeable skin. And then you have the salamanders and the newts. Newts are a type of salamander. So another thing about the toads is they all have toxins on their skin, bufotoxins they're called. And one of the differences between the newts and the salamanders, the newts have toxins as well, and they can be highly poisonous. There was a man who supposedly a California newt crawled into his coffee and he drank it, and that was the end. That was a long time ago. So careful.
That explains a lot about our politics in the 90s, don't you think, Ben?
And then the final group of amphibians, which are not well known, are the caecilians, Caecilian. They are the limbless amphibians, and they don't hang out around the ponds. They're not calling. They're just out in usually the rainforest, burrowed underground until a heavy rain comes, and they'll come up for a while, breed, and go back down. So yeah, they are not to be confused with the reptiles. The reptiles are the snakes, lizards, crocodiles, etc. Reptiles have a hard, they have a hard egg when they have an egg. Amphibians do not have a hard shell on the egg. That's why amphibians have to always be near water and come out in the rainy season.
What is a chameleon? Is a chameleon a reptile?
Reptile.
Okay.
Yeah, if
What
they have
about-
scales, they're probably a reptile.
What about an axolotl?
Yeah, the axolotls are amphibians, and I was actually just down in Mexico City where the axolotls are from, and actually throughout Mexico they love the axolotl, and I'm so impressed with what they've done to increase the popularity of their amphibians. In Mexico City, for certain, you go anywhere and you're going to see axolotl art and little trinkets being sold and stuff like that. Hopefully it's also educating people, because the axolotl, they're from the Mexico City area where there's, millions of people, and their wetlands have been pretty much covered up.
And so are they, and of these various amphibian categories, which are the ones that are in most trouble?
Let's see. Well, I mean, the axolotl itself, there's various species of related salamanders, of which axolotls are a type of salamander. Axolotl itself has a lot of trouble. It kind of just depends where you go around the world. I'll say as a group, the Atelopus, they live up in the mountains in northwest South America, and Central America. So the area around Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela, Peru, Bolivia, that's kind of the hot spot of amphibian declines and extinctions. Though there's definitely declines and extinctions all around the world, but that's where you find the most, in part because that's the world's amphibian biodiversity hotspot, so there's more species, but also the threat level is super high. As I said, the chytrid fungus is the biggest problem for amphibians up in the mountains, and you've got a lot of Andes Mountains amphibians there that have had trouble from that.
So I grew up in Kenya, and the frogs. Actually, I was just there over the summer in Masai Mara, and the camp where I was staying, the frog singing was deafening at night. Like it was like deafening, which is really cool. But also it was like deafening. So it was very impressive. I wonder if you have any or know anything about African frogs and their status. I know. By the way, I'm taking a group with Ben to Kenya in June. Plug, Dr.
I can put you in touch with our frog contacts there, and they can take you out frogging. I actually happen to be the chief of development and environment in Yakrom in western Ghana, where we had Save the Frogs Ghana very active for 9 years. It was our most active international chapter, and since then I've been leading Save the Frogs Africa, which is more whole continent. So yes, I have contacts in Kenya. We've given out grants to Kenyan researchers,
Nice.
and I actually know an ecotourism full-time like agency there who specializes in frogs. So yeah, I can put you in touch with people there.
That's very cool. The Kenyans are, I don't know how you think they're doing, but in general, they're very big on conservation because
Sure,
it's
yeah.
such a big part of their economy, and they're actually leaders on climate as well. 90% of their power is renewable in Kenya.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. I do know, those countries that are dependent on tourism, they get their tourism because of their wildlife. In Kenya and South Africa for certain, and a couple of the other countries. So it is important. What's not been important, pretty much worldwide, is that frogs are always amphibians are not up there with the big cats and the big game that get most of the conservation dollars and attention and tourist attention. But we're changing that slowly but surely. So, the amount of interest in frogs has been increasing in the public and in the scientific community. And now you can go to most countries and there's going to be somebody there who specializes in frogs, which was not the case
Very
20
cool.
or 30 years ago.
Very, very cool.
Do you
I've not seen a lot of frogs growing up, but I heard them all the time. The frogs at night was a constant in my childhood, and they again when I go there, it's still something that you
Yeah.
hear.
Well, that's how you ended up on somewhat live TV with a frog hat on. That doesn't happen to everyone, so that's a good thing.
Well, I end up on here in many different outfits to be
Okay.
fair, but yeah.
Yeah, Holly is not inhibited about, dress up, nor am I. Um, so I want to ask you about how you had the frankly inspired idea of glomming on to the sort of
Portland frogs.
unrelated phenomena
Yeah.
of the Portland frogs. Um, I will confess that, unlike Holly, I actually did know and did warn Holly that this looks like an actual frog protest.
I don't remember warning.
It was like we were driving over there, and I was like, this is actually a frog protest.
Well,
And you're
when
like,
we were
"Nah."
driving over there, but
Um, so how did you, when you saw the Portland frogs, how were you like, this is a good thing. We gotta merge with this.
Yeah. So that was, I believe, around October 12th or so when the Portland frogs kind of went viral and people started sending me, everyone sends me their frog related news that they see. And I had a couple of people that were like,
Yeah, it's
you
kind of
got,
like they sent me. If anybody projects anything
Yeah.
anywhere, they
okay.
get it
Or
in
dog
30
shirt.
seconds.
Okay. Well, a couple people who I know well, they were like, you got to like take advantage of this. And I was like, tell me how. And then I saw probably a couple days later. Well, one thing I realized. Well, let's see. I first thing I did. It's what I probably always do is like I'm gonna write a web page about it and its relation to everything. So I put up a page about the Portland frogs, and that was kind of probably our first like kind of pro democracy type of article on the site. And I realized not to I don't know, maybe like a week or two later that it was getting a whole lot of views. And I read in a comments, I was just scrolling through comments on some post, probably from the Oregonian, because they put up a lot of frog content. Someone put, their whole comment was just Million Frog March. And I immediately thought, that's exactly what I should do. Now, a little bit more background on me. I'm often outside of the USA, so I was gone from October of 2024 until October of 2025. So I was living out there in the happily non-Trump outside world. And you've got that saying, like, if you ever wondered what you'd do if your country was becoming a dictatorship, look at what you're doing right now. So I was out there and all I could do was, post on social media or whatever, make my thoughts known on the situation. And then I got back here and I had to leave again to go to Mexico City. But during that time, I was like, should I do the march? Should I not do the march? And then it just kind of, I was just like, I have to do it because I personally want to do something to assist the USA. We've got like 12,000 people on our Save the Frogs mailing list. Everyone go out there, savethefrogs.com/newsletters. Hey, I didn't even mention, we have a website, savethefrogs.com. It's got, I thought it had about 1,000 pages, but I actually looked it up last night. It's got about 2,500 pages worth of content, 10 full-length books worth of content up there. So go check that out. And the Million Frog March page has actually about 10 pages related to it. So anyway, I thought I need to do something and get out in the public. No more like, or it's fine, like social media posting, it's good. Have a podcast, that's awesome. But let's get out there in the public. And I needed to do it immediately because I'm leaving the country again, and because winter's coming, and because holidays are coming. And I knew, so basically 16 days before the march, I decided like it's going to happen. I got 16 days to do it. We're going to do it. And whatever happens. So I got right on it. And I'll say maybe fortunately one of our board, the first board member who I told it to, he was like, I'm an enthusiastic yes. And he lives in Pennsylvania. So I thought, hey, that's cool. And then the next board member was a yes from North Carolina. So I was like, if people are going to be driving in from afar, then it's clearly of interest. But our another board member was like, I don't know if it's enough time. And what if there's not enough people? And, it's not going to be 1 million people. But that actually inspired me to work really hard. So basically, I just went full on for 16 days. And we got 65 people out there, which was actually more than I expected, because our 2011 march at the EPA or protest, we had 40 people. And I considered that very successful. So, it was a good start. And I think our next one will have a whole lot more people.
So, let me just say, the jokes aside, we kind of ribbed you a little bit, but I love this. I think, and I love this for two reasons. The first is that I actually think it is important that people who are doing special interest advocacy um, think about the bigger picture of the health of the democracy in which they're trying to advocate. Because a world in which we don't meaningfully have the right to protest, to petition government for redress of grievance, to lobby, is actually a world in which the more specialized your interest, if it's not one that you can pay somebody to or bribe somebody to effectuate, the less capacity you have, right? And so I think there are a lot of uh, and I'm not using special interest here in a pejorative sense. I'm using it just in the sense
An
that
especially cool interest.
but also just narrower, that you're not a general
Yeah, we're niche. Frog
Right.
conservation is niche.
Yeah, it's niche. And the number of organizations that say, hey, we're the frog advocacy organization, we're not a democracy organization, that's a really tempting position for a lot of people to take. And I think it's great that you guys are thinking about it in not to mix ecosystem metaphors, but in the sense of the broader health of the democratic ecosystem in which you guys have to function. And I actually think that's really important. The second thing is, I I actually think, and this is a little bit more tentative, that to the extent that frogs become a symbol of democratic, whether you call it resistance or anti-authoritarianism or whatever the chosen nomenclature is going to be, that has to be good for the idea that we like frogs. Like, I don't think it was good for your movement when Pepe the Frog was the symbol of white supremacy, you know?
That was not. But I will say that, wow, so many topics we've touched on. Go to savethefrogs.com/Pepe to learn all about Pepe.
Well,
Pepe,
and the
yeah,
artist of which
Wow,
was,
you are on
he is
top
a
of
Save the
things.
Frogs donor.
yeah, no, he's a
Yeah,
good guy.
Matt Fury. I
And
want him. He was actually one of my ideal guest speakers. I didn't get around to attempting to contact him. So,
no,
but
I mean, this was done against his will,
yeah,
and it was and he's been a real stand-up guy. But I don't think it's a good thing for, people who actually want to save frogs to have a
yeah.
cartoon character frog be the symbol of like Steve Bannonism,
Yeah,
right?
fortunately, I think Pepe's gone so big, he's no longer just a alt-right thing. And I'll say that the crypto people love Pepe for other reasons, and the crypto people love Matt Fury, and therefore the crypto people, a lot of them love Save the Frog. So that's been Pepe went a good way to get those people donating to us. But yes, it's better. Like the Portland frog, I did like, hey, frogs are going viral. People are loving the frogs. That's why we should take advantage of it. And we should, as a purely Save the Frogs environmental message, we should try to get those people who now love frogs to realize that, frogs are also under threat. The real frogs are under threat. So that's why I thought, the march is going to be good. It'll hopefully spread to Portland where they're big into frogs, and it'll educate those people about frogs, and we can use this whole thing to educate people about our need to protect our rights. And I'll also add to it, another reason I wanted to do it November 15th before it got cold, before the holidays, was because, as I said, I'm off and out of the country. I'm leaving the country, and I really didn't know. When I come back in the spring, will I be allowed to protest? Will Save the Frogs be allowed to be on public property? Would they give us a permit? Those are the kind of things I wish I didn't have to think about and wonder those things, because those are things that have always been, part of being an American, and it's our goal to ensure that they will be. Let me read I'm going to do a really fast frog poetry recital. I thought to read this right when you guys were talking at the start. This is from The Little Book of Frog Poetry, Volume 1, which you can download on our site. It's called Make Your Presence Felt by Abhishek Mittal. Lend your voice, make some noise, wake up and fight for a cause. The issue of frog extinction should be dealt. Contribute and make your presence felt. So that's part of the Million Frog March, is part just like get people outside, make people realize like you can go out, there's stuff happening. There's protests. You can organize your own protest. And it was some people who were there, it was their first ever protest. So if we get people outside and we get them thinking about the environment, and we get them thinking about ways that they can speak up and protect democracy, then it's successful. And if we have a good time and get to wear frog-themed clothing.
Costumes are a thing of beauty, and I really think the only problem with frog costumes is that there is not a frog wearing a dog shirt costume, and I've just got to fix that.
I think we could get you a very large
Yeah, you got to
shirt.
customize.
It would
And we
have to
cut
be.
the neck off. Melissa's on this, Ben.
I'm working on it. Melissa's working on it. We're gonna get this solved. I have a question for you, and folks, if you guys have questions, this is a great time to pop on screen. We've got about 12 minutes left. Um, I'm I, I I'm interested. There are a lot of environmental causes where, there are the sort of high policy issues that always amount to habitat loss and climate change and pollution, right? Where the individual really has a very limited role, except as an advocate and as a donor. And then there are the individual things we should do or stop doing, that are contributing to the problem, or failing to contribute to the solution. What are the things that individuals do with respect to frogs that they should stop doing? And what are the things that individuals don't do with respect to frogs that they should start doing?
Okay, yeah. How can we save frogs? So we've got this card right here. And if I ever have to give a speech and I don't have any kind of PowerPoint or something, all I need is the card, because it's got everything here. Frogs are disappearing. Here's the threats to frogs. Frogs are important. Hey, we haven't even said why. So let me just say that real fast, and then I'll say how to save the frogs. Frogs, they're an integral part of the food web. They're bioindicators, as we discussed. They're eating ticks, flies, mosquitoes, and other pest species that spread diseases and damage agricultural crops. And they have an inherent right to exist. They've been around for a lot longer than humans, hundreds of millions of years. And hey, frogs are cool. So with that being said, we have reasons to save the frogs. How can we save the frogs? Here's what I listed as our top things that the average person can do. I'll just start out and say, in general, think about your own ecological footprint. So what is your impact on the environment? What do you use? Who do you buy stuff from? Those are good places to start. Slow down driving on wet nights. So right now, that's not going to be a problem in the DC area, but come March or April, and actually, in California right now, in the winter, you've got newts crossing and stuff like that. So, hey, we actually had the Chileno Valley Newt Brigade represented at the Million Frog March. They helped newts cross the road in California. Don't use pesticides. Build a frog pond in your backyard. If you're a landowner, that's definitely one of the best things that you can do. Turn off the tap. Don't waste water. Don't eat frog legs. We actually have had frog legs protests in the past right here in Maryland and Virginia.
I saw that.
Yes.
So I have a confession to make.
Okay.
Which is I used to go to Julio's.
Well, I did too.
And eat frog legs.
Oh, I didn't do that.
Number one, they're quite delicious. And number two, I had no idea that they weren't like raised and, for, and so I have a question. When we say like, save the bay about the Chesapeake Bay, there's always an element of that, mollusks, plant oysters, they're really good for the ecosystem, and Chesapeake Bay oysters are yummy, blah, blah, blah. The more oysters, the better. Is there no analogous thing? Like frogs they're wild.
I haven't heard of anything like, hey, we need to farm frogs to save the frogs. No, I'll say there's two types of frogs that are eaten. There's wild caught. Okay, so France, it's illegal. We were on the front page of Le Monde in 2010. In France, it's illegal to eat a native frog because they ate most of their native frogs. Now they import most of them from Indonesia, the world's biggest collector of wild-caught frogs and exporters. But worldwide, it may be good for American frogs that people used to eat a lot of wild-caught, like Florida pig frogs. But now most of those restaurants, like Uncle Julio's, they're in all likelihood importing their frogs from frog farms in other countries. Well, here's the thing though, because those frog farms have, if you've ever seen a picture of the frog farms or a video, there's literally like hundreds of thousands or even like 1 million frogs in these ponds. They're crawling all over each other. It's perfect disease spreading conditions.
Yeah, I'll never touch the stuff again. But I'm totally surprised by, when I learned this, that I was actually genuinely surprised by it. I had no idea that this was a problem.
Yeah, frog legs are definitely a problem in certain places, and I mean, I don't know if it still goes on. I haven't looked at it. There was a Fellsmere Frog Festival in Fellsmere, Florida, where they said, some small town, the kids are bored. We need something for them to do. Let's start a festival where we eat frogs. And they were eating about 60,000 Florida pig frogs a year. So, if you go out there and collect 60,000 frogs, it's not good. So, yeah, frog legs are, don't eat frog legs. There's other stuff that we can eat. We've got lots of grocery stores around.
It tastes like chicken anyway.
Yeah, so, Turn off the tap. Don't eat frog legs. Reduce, reuse, recycle. That's like the oldest environmental thing out there. But hey, that comes right down to, our ecological footprint. Use less plastic. Use rechargeable batteries. Vote for the environment. Unfortunately, most politicians don't even talk about their environmental stance in this day and age, and people don't ask them much. But hopefully we'll return to a world where, politicians must have a pro-environment stance. Become an amphibian biologist. Eat locally grown organic food. It wasn't shipped from afar, wasting lots of fuel. Educate yourself at SaveTheFrogs.com. Don't purchase wild-caught amphibians as pets. Tell your local teachers about Save the Frogs. Organize a Save the Frogs Day event. I haven't even talked about Save the Frogs Day, which is going to be the 18th annual Save the Frogs Day will be April 28th, 2026. So that's a few days after the Million Frog March, April 25th. So in that respect is another reason we're going to have a whole lot bigger turnout, because it's going to be like the main Save the Frogs Day event too. So hopefully we had a lot of people coming in from all over. Join a Save the Frogs Eco Tour. Donate to Save the Frogs. Become a member. And join the Million Frog March.
Holly, do you have anything else before we wrap?
Well, I'm feeling a little guilty about some of my habits. Yeah, I will change my. So I do have to confess, the mosquitoes in DC are just like, and they've just gotten worse and worse and worse. And some of us, I'm asking for a friend.
Wetlands and mosquitoes.
Some of us, not me, of course, but some people, friends of mine, spray their yard for mosquitoes.
Okay. I'm curious what chemical they use. Maybe you can find out and message me.
Some people, not me, of course, but some people use companies like Mosquito Squad. They do have a more environmental friendly option, but we tried that and it didn't do anything. We are just like swarmed by mosquitoes here.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I grew up around here. I remember I never had a mosquito problem until like 2001. I remember.
It's an invasive species.
Yeah, they came here, and that's super unfortunate. And in DC, like, it's good that there's some trees and stuff in DC more than a lot of cities, but it is a city, and people put out like trash and old tires and those things.
Much wetter the last several years.
Okay.
So much more moisture.
Yeah. Well, as far as there's two things. You want to get rid, like empty all your pots of that standing water. Those are not real ecosystems, so they're perfect for mosquitoes because they don't have predators. If you can build a frog pond and it has animals living there and dragonflies and other things coming there, they're going to eat the mosquitoes. So they're going to help reduce the mosquito population. A healthy wetland should reduce mosquitoes. Chemicals, though, I'm not sure what they're spraying. It's probably not good for frogs. If you want to have frogs on your property, I'd start researching organic ways to reduce the mosquitoes.
And just a frog pond question for those of us who are urban but have small plots of land. How small can a frog pond be in order to be useful?
Even in like a bird bath size is probably good. You'll probably get some frogs there, but whatever space you have, if it's 3 feet diameter, that's probably good enough. A foot deep, 18-inch deep.
And do you stock it with native frogs, or do you just let them show up?
Well, we have on savethefrogs.com/academy. In Save the Frogs Academy, we have a wetlands course that's got full info on how to build a backyard pond. Build it and make it the kind of place frogs would want to be. Eventually, a frog, if there's frogs around, they're going to be hopping around. One of them is going to find it, start calling, and then the other frogs are going to join in, just like a Million Frog March.
Just like
started out, and then other frog enthusiasts will show up there.
Folks, we're going to leave it there. Look, you have your assignment for your backyard frog project. I am definitely going to be doing this at the cabin in the woods, and I may even do it in DC. I will also be, assuming I am in town, at the Million Frog March in April. This time I will not be caught unawares by it, and you should join too. Kerry, what a pleasure to meet you, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Ben and Holly. It has been enjoyable. I'd love to come back in early April to tell you what's actually when we have even more Million Frog March plans and specifics, and remind people that
yourself invited and welcome.
Good.
Oh, I loved I forgot to write about the little the piper or whatever. There was like a frog flute. But I
I played the
oh,
Bon
that was
Surrey.
you.
I
Oh, okay.
played the Star Spangled Banner to
On
start
the
the
flute.
event.
Yeah, that was very nice. Maybe you could
Thank
do
you.
a whole like other. You could do other songs. You
Well,
could do
I was
musical.
thinking every time we're out there, I'll do a different I was thinking My Country 'Tis of Thee, but I'll say also I play classical music of Northern India. I've never been trained in Western music, and that I had never played the Star Spangled Banner until 3 nights before the event. So I taught it to myself. I had fun. And I look
It was
forward to playing some
impressive.
more patriotic music.
It was impressive.
Thank you.
Folks, we're going to be back tomorrow. As this show reflects, I never really know who the guests are going to be. Sometimes it's just a blue sky exchange or a Twitter exchange. It's like, hey, come on and talk about frogs. And it happens, but sometimes it's just me and Holly, or, oh, I know Nastia is going to show up tomorrow. So, you'll be there. I'll be there. It's going to be a blast.